Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Rebuild It, where it is a frigid 11 degrees out here and I'm about to freeze to death. And this week we are on back on the Challenger, and it's been so long since we did the Challenger, I don't remember what we did on the last episode, so let's check it out and see.
When we last left our hero, he was eyebrows deep in this heat-melting, clock spring malfunctioning, plug wire fusing, altogether unforgiving airbag module. Now, let's tune in to see how he plans on getting out of this nefarious situation.
There's one melted ends, I just cut the other one off. So next thing we need to do, I've unplugged this plug here and this one here, which need to be undone to be able to get the steering wheel off. So the next thing we'll do is take this bolt out, and then we should be able to wiggle the steering wheel and get it to pull off, and then we'll see our clock spring. Alright, so here is our clock spring. And I do not see any way to just replace the wires going to the airbag. So it looks like I have to replace this whole unit, which I'm sure is going to be very expensive. It's got the switch that does the telescoping steering wheel on it, and it's got your stalk for your turn signal and all that stuff on it. So we'll go check and see what that's going to cost, but that's a real bummer. I did find the clock spring, so that is ordered. And so now, really, we just need to start tearing the rest of that dash out. I've got the new dash here and the new airbag and all that, so we could get all that out and get the new put back in up to this point to where we're waiting on the clock spring. All right, so I think I will start tearing this out by first getting on the other side over there and getting that trim out around the door. And then we got to get these covers on the pillars up there off, because those are covering the top of this piece, which needs to come off. So we'll do all that, and then we'll start pulling out like the gauge cluster and the screen, and there's like a big unit like down below there on the glove box. It's like this whole big section that comes off. So we'll get all that, and that's kind of the order that we'll do it. So let's start. So I've got all this glove box area out and all the stuff unplugged. So now I'm just going to start going around, and there's like 9 million of these little screws, and for some reason they switched from metric to fractional on these dash ones. These are all quarter, and then after we get those, we'll start working along the top. We'll get these little speakers out, and we just got all these screws all along this, and this is great because we have the windshield out. These are going to be a lot easier to reach now. Okay, so these dashes are kind of notorious for being difficult to get out, and I think the main problem is that this ductwork right here, like for the defrost, is up through here, and it's got these tabs that go in all these little slots right here, and it's screwed on through the bottom, through these holes, the screw going up. And so if you have the windshield on, there is no way that you can get those off. Without the windshield, you can pull that out, this little stud right here, pull it out and get enough space in there to get the screws out, and then it comes off. But if you don't have that access, you got to take all that ductwork off from inside the car, which is super hard to get to all the screws. And then once you get all that out, then you can take these off once you get the dash out. We're gonna go ahead and get this dash out of here, and then we'll decide if we need to, you know, lift this up and what we need to do to put that on, if it's gonna be easier to do it outside the car or inside. So let's go ahead and get the rest of the way out. Okay, so here's what it looks like without the dash. And I think it's going to be easier to do it, put it back in like I took it out, just lay it in there and lift these up and put those screws back in there. I'm not sure if that new dash has this little stud that goes in there, but that's kind of a pain. So if it doesn't have it, then that'll make it easier. Here's what it looks like on the inside. This one is worse than the ZR1 that we did, just because of the ductwork. Seemed like the ZR1 dash went faster. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave that dash off until we get the airbag module back in, because see that bolt hole right there? I think it's going to be a lot easier to get to that with this dash off than it is with all that in the way. It's a killer to get that bolt in there, so I think I'm gonna wait for that. But in the meantime, we can be switching everything over from the old dash, like the vent duct that goes in there. The new airbag has to be mounted in there, and we'll look on the other one and see a few things. Oh, the little bulb that goes right here, the little alarm thing. So let's go get all that switched over and I'll show you the new dash. All right, so here's the gigantic box this new dash comes in. There's the pad, and there it is. There's no good way to ship that thing. All right, so I've got these laying in the basement floor in here. There's the old one, there's the new one. So first thing, we've got to put this pad on there, then we'll find our airbag, get that thing installed, and figure out what's involved in getting that vent out. Alright, so all that's switched over, so now we have a $1,000 piece of trash right there to go throw in the dumpster. Seems like that's such a waste. I wish they could figure out a way to do that without having to change the whole dash when the airbag blows. But here's our new one, so we'll set it aside and get ready to install it whenever the airbag module gets back. Alright, so we got the package back in from Safety Restore in Westfield, Massachusetts. And hopefully all of our seat belts and our airbag module and our pretensioners are all repaired. Here's the seat belts. And usually the time is like, once they get them, it's usually like a 24-hour turnaround time, which is pretty fast. Here's the pretensioners. You see, remember how the cables were hanging out? Well, the one anyway, one of them was not, I told them to check it, I left them a note because it was not deployed, and it should have been. So hopefully they checked it. And here's our thing that we need first, our airbag module. So we'll start by putting that in, and then we can start actually getting the dash put back in. Well, so here we have our SRS module. And this is the hole back here that was like a nightmare to get this thing out of, so that's why I left the dash off so we could put this back in before put the dash in. Hopefully it actually is easy to get to now, or easier. So that's not going anywhere. Now we have this plug is in, locks. This one is in, box. So now let's go get the actual dash and get it kind of close to where it's going to be. These kind of have to go up over it, and then we got to work those defrost vents back up in there before we can put that stud back in, like I showed you when we were getting it out. So it's going to be kind of hard to reverse the way we got it out, but hopefully we can do it. Hopefully it'll stretch enough. All right, so we've got this dash where it needs to be up here. Got everything bolted in. So what I'm doing now is going around inside and making sure all the little screw holes line up, that we can at least get the screws started in every spot, because man, there's a million little screws. So just everywhere they go, I'm gonna get them started and make sure everything's lined up right before I start tightening stuff. All right, so I've got all the main screws in. I've got the screen back in, the gauge cluster, start button, all that kind of stuff. So I'm getting ready to do the steering shaft there, put the clock spring back on and all that. Then I gotta jump over here and do all this stuff down here for the glove box. And hopefully when I'm done, there will not be any screws left over. All right, so I've got all this dash, or this glove box area put back together, and I have 0 screws left, so that must mean everything is back. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the steering wheel on and run those wires through it, plug that in and torque it to, I think it's 63 foot-pounds, and so we'll get that put back on, and we'll get the airbag snapped in. And I'm gonna leave this trim off of the gauge cluster area until we get power to it, because there's nothing, like, it doesn't have any power going to it. It's just trim, so I just want to make sure everything works, so I don't have to take it back off if there's some kind of problem. So let's get the steering wheel put on, and then the next thing will be seat belts. First time we've seen that. so this seat belt is in, and I think I'm missing this piece right here. I think that came off during the wreck. I gotta order that, unless it's in my parts junk somewhere, but I don't think I took it off. But anyway, so that seat belt's ready. So now I'll jump over and I'll do that side, and I won't do that on camera. I'll just go ahead and put that in, and then we'll go to the next thing. All right, so now our other seat belt is in on the driver's side. Everything's back together good over there. And I ordered and got in this piece here for this side, so that's finished. And we did get the pretensioners in with, you know, the seat belts and stuff, so we can go ahead and put those on the seats. Another thing I need to do, which I almost forgot about, is you see this little guide there for the seat belt. It's made of plastic and it's mounted to the headrest. Well, the one that's over here, when the seat belt locked up, it broke that off. So I do have another one right here that I got in. So I need to take this headrest off and see how to get that off and reinstall that. When I got that off and held this up to it, I have the driver's side and I need the passenger side, so they sent me the wrong one. So I have to return that and put the right one. That's all part of the constant problems when you are rebuilding a car. It's the parts. Like, you get a lot of things wrong and it costs time, and you have to wait around for the other ones to come in. That holds up progress, and so it's part of it. All right, so I finally have got parts in from the Challenger to get the interior put back in. So we got this little surround here for the shifter console. Finally got it in the right thread. We got the white thread this time. And here is the console, and this is the passenger side over here. If you look at the side of this, you can see where somebody is, I guess whatever kind of cable they were plugging into the power outlet right here, it kept rubbing right here, and it rubbed a hole in this. So I ordered this leather piece, the surround piece right here, and the one I ordered came in right here, but it is the wrong color stitching. The other one has like the white light color stitching. I didn't know there was two different availability of stitching, so that's kind of like a gray color. So I'm gonna have to, this was on eBay, even though it's new, so I'm gonna have to put it back on there and try to sell it, because it was a no return thing. So I reordered and got the correct one coming, but it's not here yet. That is the correct one. And then I ordered a new one of these headrest things to hold the seat belt, and got the wrong one again. So I'm gonna have to send it back again and order it again. And I keep getting the driver's side one every time. So we'll take this apart and switch this out, and then actually start putting some of the stuff back in the car. All right, so I've got the console all put back together, so now let's get it installed in here. All the wires hooked up, and then we'll move on to seats. All right, so I've got the console back in. I've just got that shifter area just kind of laying in there in case I need to pop something back out when we start it up if the light doesn't come on or something. So I'm going to vacuum out the rest of my mess here, and we'll put the passenger seat in, and I'll just have to put that headrest back in once we get that part back in. That way we can plug up our airbag stuff right there, and then we'll jump over the other side and do the same thing, and maybe we can start this thing. All right, so I've got everything hooked up. I got the seat bolted back in. Here's the key. Let's start this thing up and see if we got everything looking right on the dash. Seatbelt light goes out. I'm gonna hook up the seatbelt. Door shut. Right. So we are good. Everything else is cosmetic. Make sure it goes into gear here. Yep. Shifter's working. Get a nice breeze when you don't have a windshield, man. So I'm gonna let it run a little bit, and then I'll put the piece up there back in, and then these pillar covers, and I'll go ahead and snap all this trim in right here, and then tomorrow the windshield guy is gonna show up. Alright, so our interior is complete, except for that headrest right there. But everything else is in. Well guys, hope you enjoyed this episode of Rebuild It. I always enjoy the interior rebuilds. They just seem like everything goes back nice and smooth. You got a nice clean workspace and no sanding at all. So hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please give us a thumbs up below. Make sure you're subscribed, and we'll catch you on the next one.
And always remember, don't retire it if you can rebuild it. Thanks so much guys for tuning in and watching this week's episode of Rebuild It. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any awesome content. Have a good one.